If they want to do a flat listing, we'll do a flat listing for $750 or $900. That means we're going to put it in the MLS, and they'll go in there at 3%, and they prepaid us $750, and we send all the other agents to them to talk directly to them. Whatever meets their needs, I'm willing to do. A deed-off packet is one where we have prepared up where they sign a quitclaim deed, they sign a purchase agreement with a contract for $1. They've deeded that property over to us. Then we've created a hardship. This is typically for a pre-foreclosure. They've signed a hardship letter. It's a whole list. They've signed a mortgage, where you send in the request for the mortgage payoff. They've signed blank ones of those so you can send it in and get the payoff. They've signed a quitclaim deed and a warranty deed because it could be that that they're dragging some taxes, but you could get the house leased out. So you need to put yourself in the chain of title. We do not put ourselves in the chain of title at the time we do that, but we do file our claim of interest because we don't know that we can actually get the deal done or not. So we're just real straight with them. And so what we have done is we've gained 100% control of the property. And they can get in their car and drive out of state. We have them sign a power of attorney. And why would we have them limited to the property only? They sign that power of attorney because if they're gone and they had an escrow account and an insurance check comes back, how are you going to cash the check? If you bought the house in your individual name, after the closing, you could deed the property from your name into a limited liability company. Now, you have violated your mortgage. You've not violated the law, but you broke the contract with the mortgage company by deeding that property into your name.
Deeding it up to the LLC.
Deeding it to the LLC, I'm sorry. So you bought it in your name because you can't get financing if a property's a nice, clean property. It has to be purchased in your name. Now, if you've got all the proper insurance and everything, you're still covered. But if you, for the sake of protection, you want to deed it into a limited liability company, you can do that. Now, typically, there's never ever a problem. If you call the mortgage company up and say, I just deeded this into my limited liability company, you're going to have a problem. If you don't, you're not going to typically have a problem. Certain lenders that would let you, there's hard money lenders that will let you close in a limited liability company and they'll have a personal guarantee with them. There are people that would do that, but as a typical general rule inside the industry, you have to buy the house in your name. Yeah, you can't deed the mortgage into your LLC. The mortgage is held by the bank. You can only deed the title. When you take ownership of that property, you're in deed holder position and the bank has a mortgage against it. So you can deed your position into your limited liability company's name.
How would that be a violation?
The contract on your mortgage in Section 17 says that you can't transfer the title of the property or you're in violation of the contract. Now, a ton of people do that. They don't check that. So now you've got the property in your limited liability company's name. Now you've also got a problem because you had insurance when you bought it in your name, so you have to add your limited liability company as an additional named insured on the insurance policy. When you get a mortgage, when you get a home improvement loan, they're additional named insured. So I'm saying as a general rule, and I've taught a lot of seminars, I've never had anybody come to a seminar. And one time I went to a seminar in Florida taught by a guy named Jack Miller, and there was 500 people in the room, and they were all like me dealing with lots of properties. He asked how many people have bought houses or taken over properties with due on sale clauses where people deed it over to you. Most of the hands in the room went up. He said, how many have you been foreclosed on? None of them. Now that's because they're getting their payments. There's not an issue with it. And you've not violated the law. You have violated the mortgage contract. And when this business, if you're chasing somebody in a pre-foreclosure and they're deeding the property over, how much money did you pay out of your pocket? If for $1, okay? If it's a don't want her in the right circumstances. So what I'm saying is it's all proportionate to what your risk is. Yes, they could call the mortgage due. Do they as a practical rule? Not yet. Could that all shift? Tomorrow it could shift. So I'm saying that's just a calculated risk. But then the question is how much money have you risked doing that deal? So Sam Bernstein, when he looks it up, he's going to look up at whatever properties are in that limited liability company's name. So if he's got 3 properties in that limited liability company, they're going to go look those up, and they're looking for assets. And then when they look up the property, they're going to see that not only does he have that mortgage, but another limited liability company has a second mortgage against the property, and the thing's over-leveraged. so it doesn't look so good, right? And that's his other limited liability company. He's given that limited liability a mortgage, but he might have already been discharged, but he just never recorded his discharge. It's just that it looks, when you look at it, it has the appearance of a poison pill. Why do I want to see something that has no value, you know? Do you follow? I mean, you're not, there's other fish to skin, you know? He's going to go on down the road he's going to be looking for the individual person that owns the property. That is, he pulls it up and finds they're working for so-and-so. There's a hit, you know? You're not so attractive. And that's not to say that he still won't sue the limited liability company. And it's not to say that he wouldn't bring suit against you either, you know? Because you can pretty much sue anybody you want, you know? So, okay, so, where to get the money where to find money when you get a deal done. Finding money in this business is not an issue. So some of you have got it in your head, I got to have the money before I can do the deal. That is not so. That's never an issue. If you've got the deal bought right, it'll never be a problem finding the money. And that's what leverage is all about. That's what mortgages are all about. That's what assignments are all about. That's what, you know. And when you can't find the money is when you know you don't have a good deal. Like one time I had hard money lenders, they wouldn't fund the project. It was moving a house. Well, I ended up losing like $5,000. I had one hard money lender that did it. And he did it because we guaranteed him X amount of profit. And so we had to write checks out when we finally closed the house. We moved it from the Pontiac Airport over to a vacant lot in Waterford. It was a bad experience. So if a hard money lender is turning you down, that should be a good indication to you that you have not done a very good job of finding a good deal. So, and you just drop the potato right there and go on down the road. Okay. So how to take title of the property, limited liability company, or you can take it in your own name as long as you've got all the proper insurance and liability coverage and everything else. There's nothing wrong with that. So how are you going to insure a property? And I'm talking about a property that's a blowout. You know, so like, how do you protect yourself there? You're going to use a builder's risk policy if you're going to go in and build this property or bring it up. Zurich has builder risk policies. Anybody use Zurich in the room? Zurich will give you liability protection. It will give you protection if your tools are stolen, if materials get stolen, and you're not going to get that from anywhere else. And then you're going to get a basic fire policy. And if you can't get the fire policy through anybody else, you can get it through Michigan Basic. One of the better companies based upon public adjusters' acknowledgement is Farmers. It's a Farm Bureau, yeah, Farm Bureau. They are reasonable and they pay claims. You know, sometimes you're in safe hands, you're not, because they fight every claim that gets made to them. So, okay, so does everybody follow? So when you buy this house, you're going to get title insurance. You're not going to ever go buy a house that you don't close through a title company, unless it's a deed off, right? And they're deeding the house to you. You're going to go tie it up right on the spot, and you're going to analyze it later. In all purchase agreements, if you're an engineer, you've got to tie the house up and have your clause to analyze later. Don't start analyzing because you'll never get a deal. If your gut says it's a good deal, tie it up, analyze it later. Okay, so now we've got this house bought. Now, so now we want to rehab a house. So like this is like really exciting. Anybody rehabbed a house? Okay, so yeah, you're doing one. Okay, you're doing one, okay. So at one point, you know, I told you I was rehabbing 8 of them a month. So I've had lots of stories to talk about contractors, okay? So the first thing you want to do when you're rehabbing a house is you want to get a guesstimate of what it's going to cost to repair the house. So there's like a sheet that you go through a house. Why don't we hand out the subcontract agreement and the form you'd go through. But the first thing you want to do is go through and make a list of everything you need to do to the house. And what I'm giving you is a checklist there. You can go room by room through the entire house and write down what doesn't work. So like when you hand that to the contractor, here's your spec sheet, okay? And then what you want to do in the state of Michigan, you want to sign a subcontract agreement with them. And then in the state of Michigan, you want to make sure they have workman's compensation insurance, right? Because if they go in and saw their finger off, you're in trouble, right? If you don't have workman's comp. Now, if they have workman's comp and they show you the policy, that means absolutely nothing. Because I can give you a jillion contractors that run around with workman's comp policies that have been canceled, okay, for non-payment. You have to have yourself added on as an additional named insured on the workman's comp policy. So if you're going to hire a contractor, you can call their general insurance agent and they'll add you as an additional named insured on the workman's comp policy. And you can also do it on their liability policy. So what I'm saying is once you get into this business, you're really probably going to need to go get a workman's comp policy. Because if they aren't going to provide it, you need to provide it and then you need to deduct that out of their money. And it'll tell you if you're doing carpenter work, it's $30 per thousand or whatever. They'll give you what the number is you have to pay. If you hire somebody and they're a one-man band team, okay, one person, they can exclude themselves from workman's comp. You can talk to your workman's comp carrier. They'll give you a certificate that's an exclusion form that says that if they cut their finger off, they're responsible, okay? So they can exclude themselves, which means when workman's comp comes in and audits your policy, you're not going to have to pay for that. But you want to have the workman's comp policy because what if that one-man band you hired had 3 other people working for him? He's represented that he's only got himself working, and their fingers get cut off. So that's why you need to have a minimum workman's comp policy.
How much they usually run?
Does anybody, I'm not rehabbing right now, does anybody know what a minimum workman's comp policy is? It's probably $1,200, $1,400. I don't know. I'm taking a guess.
So if they show you a policy, how can you check if it's still valid?
You want to have the carrier that they're with send you proof that you're added to their policy, that you're covered under their workman's comp policy. I'm coming to do work at your house. I am a plumber, or I'm gonna go on your roof and fix your roof. And I'm gonna tar up around the chimney or whatever, and I slip and fall off the roof, then there's a problem. So you say, I need to see that you've got workman's comp coverage. And I say, yeah, here's my policy. And you say, okay, and this is the agent. You call the agent and say, he's getting ready to do work for me. I need to be added as an additional insured for this job. I want to get a certificate from you saying I'm covered. Now, how do I know that? I know it the hard way, okay? You don't want to go down that road. So the first thing you want to do is you want to realize that you need to be, if you're going to hire contractors, you want to see their insurance coverage. And if they don't have it, then you may have to get it if you've got a really extraordinary deal and somebody that checks out. So subcontract agreement, you want to make sure you got the proper insurance. You want to make sure you sign a subcontract agreement. So, and I want to tell you that I would hire contractors that did outstanding work, and I got good prices out of them, and they went along and we did really good business, and then they lost their mind. Just like I did and bought the 80 properties, they disappear on me. The biggest mistake made in the contracting business is when you do your interview and you check somebody out, you not give them half down on the job, you not give them 1/3 down on the job, you go buy the materials for them, you make sure they get delivered to the site, and you then pay the guy when he's done work. When you're dealing with a new contractor, Robin Thompson has developed over a period of time a very great working relationship with a general contractor. You are not in her shoes, okay? She's somebody that really knows the business. Now, you can go interview and find great general contractors, but even when you start out with them, you've got to make sure they get a proven track record with you. And that's where everybody loses money. On Friday afternoon, I had somebody that I sell a lot of properties to disappear. I haven't heard from him in 3 weeks. He came to my office, and I cut him off. I cut his emails off. I quit doing it because he wasn't responding to me, no communication. And he came in, and he said what he did was he gave the contractor half down, and the contractor left with the money. And so now he's upside down in the property, doesn't have the proper working capital to complete the job. So contractors will sink you so fast, and I did it to the tune of 80 properties. That's a really quick suicide. But if you want to, you've got to control them. So you need to, once you hire a contractor, have them do the work. You never, ever want to pay a contractor without inspecting the job. And they are experts at telling you after they built some confidence with you, they'll show up, they always want to get paid on Friday, it's immediate gratification, and you'll be real busy, and the day that you don't go inspect, you'll be in trouble. Let's walk through a house, okay? Like, so how a house should look once it's rehabbed. Now, there's two ways if you're buying a house for a rental property, you're not gonna rehab it to the same standards that you would rehab a house that you're selling. So when you pull up in front of the house, and it's summertime now, you want the walks edged, you want the grass cut, you want to make sure that there's a very good storm door in the front, not a cheapie. You want to make sure that the house cosmetically is appealing. You want to make sure if it was in the front and it had old shrubs, that you've pulled the old shrubs up and you've replaced it with new shrubs with a 4x4 landscape trim board with the, what do you call those things that you put, the mulch you put around it, so that it's got a nice look. If you're on the outside and the house had a driveway that was busting up, what I used to do is I would cap them with asphalt. And so that I had a complete, because I need an FHA cell if you've got a broken or cracked steps or something's raised. So I could do asphalt way cheaper than I could do concrete. So, but it has a nice cosmetic look to it. If it had an older asphalt driveway, then I would seal coat it. That's where you buy the tanks of tar, whatever it's called, the asphalt adhesive, and you cover it. It's like painting a driveway. Then if the city allowed you to put 2 layers of shingles on the roof, then what I would do is I would go to the side of the roof and cut back 1.5 feet, and then I would re-shingle so it looked like 1 layer of shingles. Now, I am not going to sell that house and tell the people that they're buying a roof with 1 layer of shingles. I'm going to disclose to them that there's 2 layers of shingles. But what does it do visually when you look at it? It's much more appealing and looks really good. Do you follow that? So, disclosure, 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 disclosure. I had a concrete driveway. I capped it with asphalt. You're going to disclose that on your seller's disclosure statement. You're going to tell them. But what they're doing is they're going to look at a house. They're looking visually. And then it's back to what Robin said. You know, all their senses are in order when they're going in. It needs to smell good. It needs to... So if the house needed new windows, you know, in this market, and if I was doing it today, where I would go get my windows is probably wall side, because I know I can go deal with a salesman there and get them down to about $200 to $250 an opening. That's all trimmed out with aluminum with a lifetime warranty that I can hand the new buyer. That's not to say that you need to do that. You might be able to go buy them at Home Depot and trim them out yourself, way cheaper. All I'm doing is when I'm going in to look at that house to get a rehab quote, if I've got worn out windows, I just count the number of openings I've got and go anywhere from $250 to $300 an opening, and I've got a rough idea what my rehab cost is. And your cosmetic stuff you're doing with a driveway, I used to cap a driveway for about $900. It's probably up to $1,200 or $1,400 to cap a driveway with asphalt. So you want to be able to, when you're looking at the house, doing what you're going to do to it, you need to figure out how you're going to do your repairs. So now we've got a nice looking yard, asphalt driveway, windows. If the house was framed, then I would side it. When I first started this business, I would only side the front. Then years later, I'd side the sides because I didn't, I just paint the back to match the sides. But as time went on, I discovered it's best to side the whole house. And my siding contractors, I found them working for other good window or siding and window companies that would do it on the side, and I could get some great buys. But I would find their best crews.
Vinyl or aluminum siding?
Vinyl.
Vinyl now.
Vinyl. If you do aluminum, it won't last. I mean, they steal aluminum. In the city, they have problems with aluminum. Then there's they get these brick mites. I don't know what it does, but they eat all the bricks off your house. So let's talk about a house in a tougher area too. Once you've rehabbed a house, the security you can do is you can actually buy an alarm system and have it set up. The best thing to do is to go to the neighbors, give them $20, tell them that you want them to park their car in your driveway. Okay, you want to do the Home Alone routine where you put the timers on. Remember that movie, Home Alone, where it looked like there was a jillion people in the house? You put the timers on. You have a timer on talk radio that comes on and off. So you've got a radio in there real loud, and it's coming on at different times in different rooms. You've got the lights that are coming on and off, and you've got the neighbor with the car parked in the driveway and making sure they keep the yard cleaned up for you, and they're watching the house, and you've given them some money. Best alarm system you can get, okay? And then you put a security door on the front, and you tell the people, whoever's buying that house, that when they buy the house, they have their choice of the security door or a storm door.